Hey developers, and welcome to the Explainer. So imagine, if you will, that your JavaScript code isn't just lines of text on a screen. Instead, think of it as a massive, bustling office building. Inside this building, data is constantly moving around, trying to get work done. But, just like any real corporate headquarters, not everyone has access to every single room, right? Today, we are examining the security clearance of our data. We're going to master a foundational concept in JavaScript called variable scope. And trust me, getting a solid grip on this will completely change how you architect your code.
Okay, let's dive into this. Variable scope is, at its core, the foundational blueprint of visibility in JavaScript. When you create a piece of data, a variable, JavaScript needs to know exactly where that data is actually allowed to exist. Scope determines where in the code a variable is visible, and importantly, which specific parts of your program are authorized to use it. Basically, it's the ultimate rulebook for your data security clearance.
Here is our floor plan for today. 1. Boundaries of code visibility. 2. Global scope, the open lobby. 3. Local scope, private offices. 4. The uncaught reference error. And finally, 5. Best practices for variables. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Boundaries of code visibility. Where exactly does your code live?
And this brilliantly illustrates our first point. Variables aren't just floating around in a void. When you declare them, they're placed within strict physical boundaries inside your code file. They essentially exist in two main environments. On one side, we have the global scope. You can think of this like a public park or the main lobby of our office building. Anyone can walk in, hang out, and see exactly what's going on. On the other side, we have the local scope, and this is entirely different. This is a private house or a locked private office. To get in here, you need a key. And if you're standing outside, you have absolutely no idea what's happening inside.
Moving to Section 2. Global scope, the open lobby, accessible to everyone, everywhere. So, to place a variable in the global scope, it has to be declared completely outside of any functions. Usually this happens right at the top level of your JavaScript file. For example, if you set a variable named foo to the number 20 at the very top of your script, boom, you have just created a global variable. By doing this, you've essentially put foo on the universal announcement system for the entire building. Because this global variable sits right there in the main lobby, it comes with incredible flexibility. It's declared at the top level, which means it can be called anywhere in your code. It's totally usable inside any function or just out in the open script. So let's say you have a global variable called myResult. A completely separate function located way down at the bottom of your file, like say a logResult function, can simply walk right up, read myResult, and use it without any security clearance issues whatsoever. It is truly universal.
Section 3. Local scope. Private offices, protected and locked away.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how remarkably simple it is to build these walls. The very moment you declare a variable explicitly inside a function, you've created a local variable. For instance, setting a variable named bar to 10 inside of a function called myFunction. Creating that function instantly constructs soundproof walls and a locked door around the bar variable. Let's look at the strict rules of these private offices. Because the variable is defined exclusively inside a function, it is completely locked within that function's boundaries. It cannot be accessed or called from outside of it. I mean, if you're standing out in the global lobby, that variable is entirely invisible to you. The rest of the file literally cannot see it. It is heavily protected data. Section 4. The uncaught reference error, breaking the architectural rules. Well, what happens when you try to page a variable that's locked away in one of those private offices? You get the dreaded jump scare. It's a rite of passage for literally every JavaScript developer out there. You'll see a massive red error in your console reading, uncaught, reference error, average is not defined. In our source material, the developer tried to log a local variable called average from the outside global space. In JavaScript, it essentially hits the emergency brakes.
So the crucial point is this. The variable average was actually defined by the developer. It does physically exist in the code, but because it was defined locally inside a getAverage function, the global scope has absolutely no idea it exists. When you ask the global scope to log it, the global scope just looks around the lobby and says, I have no idea what you're talking about. That is not defined out here. It's exactly like trying to read a document that is locked inside someone else's desk while you're just standing in the hallway. You simply don't have the access.
Section 5. Best practices for variables. The building codes for clean JavaScript.
Let's move to Odoo and see how this builds a robust, bug-free application. A really common scenario is needing a function to update a variable that everything else can see. So how do we do that legitimately? Step 1, declare your global variable at the top of the file, in the lobby. Maybe set it to 0. Step 2, when you're inside your private function office and you want to update that lobby variable, you just call it by its name. The critical trick here is you update it without using the var keyword again. Actually, scratch that, any declaration keyword like var, let, or const. By dropping the keyword, you're telling JavaScript, hey, don't build a new local variable in this office. Just reach out into the lobby and update the one that's already sitting out there. Okay, let's lock all this knowledge in with a neat, simple summary matrix. If your scope type is global, it's declared outside any function, it can be used everywhere, and it acts exactly like an open lobby. But if your scope type is local, it's declared inside a function, it can be used only inside that specific function, and it behaves just like a locked private office. Mastering JavaScript scope really isn't just about memorizing rules. It's about making intentional, smart decisions with your code. The general professional consensus? Choose local by default. Only put data out in the open lobby if it truly needs to be there. So I'll leave you with this question for the next time you sit down to write some code. Next time you declare a variable, does it really need the whole building to see it, or does it just need a room? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy coding!